What is up, guys? In today's video I'm going to be going over which weapon is more overpowered between the RPG or the pumpkin launcher and the explosive goo gun. Both of these weapons are recent additions to the game and they are somewhat similar, so I thought I would make a video comparing them. As always, if you guys do find this video helpful or informative, remember to give it a like, subscribe if you'd like to see more, and comment down below which you think is better between the RPG and the explosive goo gun. Before we get into the differences and advantages and disadvantages of either weapon, just a quick shout out to the sponsor on today's video. The sponsor for today's video is going to be the Coldest Water. They make insulated water bottles that are designed to keep your water cold for up to 36 hours, and they also have mugs that are designed to keep your beverage warm for much longer than average mugs as well, if that's something you're into. There will be a link down in the description below where you can check them out, and thank you to the Coldest Water for sponsoring today's video. So with that out of the way, we're going to talk about the RPG first. So some of the main advantages that the RPG has over the explosive goo gun is more consistent damage and a much larger blast radius. So the explosive goo gun does damage based on how much goo you get on somebody, and the blast radius is very small. You need to be like literally on the person with the goo in order to do any significant damage to them. Whereas the RPG, you could be like 2 or 3 meters off and they're still going to take a lot of damage, and it doesn't matter. Like, once the rocket hits them, they're taking the damage. So the RPG is like more of a flat damage, and so think of it kind of like a shotgun, whereas the explosive goo gun is more of like how much goo you get on the person, so more of like a traditional or like assault rifle or SMG style weapon. So they're both explosive weapons, but I feel like it's kind of best to think of them that way. The goo, the damage is how much goo you get on them. The RPG is just a flat damage. It does kind of vary based on how close the rocket is, but the larger blast radius of the RPG makes it to where you don't really need to be that precise with it. So the gold is 130 damage. I don't know the damage of the other ones off the top of my head, but if you hit someone directly with a gold RPG, that is 130 damage, and it's just a flat damage. So that's nice. Another nice thing about the RPG is that you can find ammo for it or get ammo from teammates, which is pretty clutch in team game modes if your teammate isn't using it. Each player can have 12 rockets, so in squads, if you're the only person using it, you can get 48 rockets essentially. I don't understand how you would use that many, but yeah, that is a thing you can do. Whereas with the explosive goo gun, it just has a flat charge. It has 200 when you find it, and if you kill somebody, they don't drop it fully loaded, and there's no way to get more ammo for this weapon at all. The rocket from the RPG does travel kind of slow. I've actually seen more people complaining about this recently than I ever did in Fortnite for whatever reason, but the way you play around that is you just predict where the person is going to be by the time the rocket hits them. So like if somebody's running, you would shoot the rocket to where you think they would be at by the time the rocket gets them, similar to how snipers would be. So it does travel slow, but you can play around that and use that effectively. And for more like closer range fights, you're not really going to notice it. And this thing can actually be quite helpful in close range, especially in build mode. Another thing that's nice about the RPG is there's a lot of like kind of interesting things you can do in build mode that I feel like really don't come into play as much in zero build, and they don't come into play as much with the goo gun. But you could shoot, if you have an opponent that's boxed, you could like shoot an RPG at their wall, and then like the moment the RPG hits, you could shoot your shotgun, and more often than not, you'll get shotgun damage in through the wall. Another thing you could do is you can get somebody's wall weak, shoot an RPG, and since it does have a relatively slow travel time, switch back to your AR, and then get that last shot in, or like finish off the wall just before the RPG gets to them, and then the wall will break and the RPG will get in and it will do damage to them. This was actually really overpowered back in the day with the heavy sniper, since the heavy sniper would one shot any wall. You could just shoot a rocket and then heavy snipe the build just as the rocket is about to hit it. The rocket gets in and the player takes 100 plus damage from the RPG. So things like that don't really work as well with the goo gun, because of the way it is. Like you have to spray out the goo, and then by the time you're done like full spraying your goo and swap to your AR, it just wouldn't work as well. Like that just doesn't work as well as it would with something with the RPG. One major drawback to the RPG though is because of that larger blast radius, you need to be more concerned about like blowing yourself up. And if you're using this too kind of like recklessly in close range fights in build mode, just an opponent putting up a wall could cost you your life. So there is some counterplay there. The goo gun is much easier to use, I think, and it's more forgiving. So we talked about the RPG has a slower travel time, and you only have one shot. With the goo gun, you have a spray of goo, so maybe you're not initially on target at first, but you can get on target and still get at least some goo onto the player. and do damage to them. And I feel like it's more forgiving in the fact that since it has that lower blast radius, you don't really have to worry about blowing yourself up at all, which is definitely a thing you have to worry about with the RPG. The Goo Gun does block somebody's vision when you get it on them, which is nice, but one of the drawbacks of this is that you need to like spray the goo at them, and you're exposed for quite a long time while doing so. I talked before about how the RPG is just one shot, and then the moment you shoot that, you can swap to your other weapon, kind of like how you would with a shotgun. The Goo Gun, while you're using it, you need to stay on it the entire time, similar to an AR or an SMG. So it requires you to be exposed for much longer periods of time, or like using the Goo Gun for longer periods of time, whereas like the RPG, you can swap to it, throw it out, and then switch to your other weapons and start using them in the fight. So just changes how you play. One nice benefit, though, is that it does block the person's vision if you do get it on them, so it's not like you're just super exposed while fighting people. The Goo Gun does actually reload faster than the RPG. So one thing that changes with weapons when the rarity increases is the reload speed. For the blue and the purple RPGs, the Goo Gun reloads faster than them. The gold RPG reloads faster than the Goo Gun. So of these weapons, the gold RPG is the fastest reloading, then the Goo Gun, and then the purple RPG, and then the blue RPG. So depending on which rarity of RPG you have, the Goo Gun may reload faster than you, and it is a very irritating weapon to play against when somebody's just spamming with it constantly. The Goo Gun is also better against cars, I think. So the RPG, if you hit a car directly, that's nice, but that's much more inconvenient to do because of the slower travel time. With the goo traveling faster, it's much easier to like hit cars with it, and I'm pretty sure if you hit the car at all, the person inside takes damage. So you could shoot the back of the truck, and when it blows up, the person inside will take damage, which is nice. So both of these weapons are extremely overpowered, I think. So this video, I was going to say I would answer which one is more overpowered. I think the RPG is more overpowered just because you can shoot it and forget about it and then immediately get on your shotgun and like start shooting them with your AR, shotgun, whatever, while the rocket is traveling to them. And the travel time of the rocket, some people find it really slow. I've played Fortnite for a long time, so I'm used to it. It doesn't really strike me as that slow, and I'm like really used to like leading targets on it. Also, the things you can do in build mode, like RPG shotgun or RPG and then AR the wall so the rocket gets in. Things like that make the RPG nice, whereas the Goo Gun does get some splash damage through builds sometimes, but it's usually a minuscule amount of damage. Basically just comes down to like the Goo Gun is easier to get damage on people, I feel like, but oftentimes it isn't going to be that much damage. The Goo Gun actually is more damage if you get the entire blast on them, but I feel like that isn't that frequent. And odds are, if you're able to nail somebody with the entire blast of the goo, you were probably going to kill that player anyways because they weren't doing anything to like really hinder you shooting at them. So I feel like the RPG is better. Just a moment of like a mistake from your opponent can cost them 100+ damage, and then you can immediately follow it up with your AR, shotgun, whatever. You don't have to worry about tracking them the entire time with your explosive weapon and then having the explosives happen. It just feels like the RPG happens so much faster. And it can really turn the tide of a fight. But both of these weapons are incredibly overpowered, and I don't think, regardless of whichever one you use, it's not like you're using a bad weapon. They're both incredibly overpowered. They're both pretty easy to use, I think, and they both really just can change the like odds of a fight immediately. Someone could be a much better player than you. Someone could be playing a fight better than you, but if you hit them with a well-timed RPG or get an entire blast of goo on them, you're probably going to win that fight regardless of those other factors. So I think both these weapons are busted, but I feel like the RPG is a little more busted. Let me know down in the comments below which one you prefer and which one you think is more overpowered. And I will see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.